Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Today is Monday, January 23rd. Welcome to a meeting of the Concord School Board of Trustees. This is a meeting of the school board and public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation about agenda items as indicated on the agenda. If you would like to address the board, please just fill out the yellow card here at the welcome table and get that to Mrs. Warren as soon as possible. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Sorry for the little bit of delay, but we will get started with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Up first tonight is Good Things, which is brought to us by this high school, Dr. Moulton.
Good evening, folks. President Wade, Mr. Foster, members of the Board of Trustees, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to talk about a few good things that are happening at Concord High School. I did bring some student representatives with me. You'll hear from them here in a little bit. But we always really look forward to these opportunities to really kind of share some of the great things and some of the talents and treasures that we offer at Concord High School. We are a special building that does some special things, and we really like to brag on ourselves. So thanks again. But we have talked a great deal this past school year about growing our community. Our theme this year for our staff and our building is growing our people, right? And I consider that my why, and there's a lot of studies that talks about nailing down your why, your purpose, what drives you each and every day. And my why is growing people, whether it be the teachers I interact every day, the community members that I interact every day, the students that I work with, always growing for a bigger and better purpose. So that's kind of been our focus this year, about growing ourselves and growing our community. And we often refer to this quote, we plant the seed that one day will grow, we never see the end result. And that's really one of the things that we hold true in education, is that we try to instill these great values and virtues into students, into our community. And these students may go off to bigger and better things and become future leaders, and we know these students behind them will eventually become that. But we may never see that end result. We just hope that we've done our best to set them up for success, in addition to the families that work with them every day and the community members that they interact with. But when we talk about community, at Concord High School, we have prided ourselves on giving back to the community. And this is what we instill in our students, and our students instill in each other, that we want to provide services to our fellow man and to help out each other. And we do this in a variety of different aspects. A lot of these things you've heard about, but I don't think you guys have really put it into one big package where we see that our building is giving back to the community in a variety of different aspects. And we are growing our people, growing ourselves, and growing the greater Elkhart community, which we want to be good stewards of this greater community as well. But I'm going to go through several of the things that we do at Concord High School where we pride ourselves on giving back to the community at large. One of the first ones is the Concord Closet. Concord Closet is a needs-based kind of entity in the high school where we collect hygiene products and clothing and a variety of other things to give back to families in need. Families in need can get these things in a discreet manner should they need those things. They partnered with our National Honor Society to do a clothing drive with the help of Mr. Yoder to get a lot of these things to replenish our Concord Closet this year. Volunteer hours in summer government. This is an often overlooked entity. Mr. Farrow is probably going to kill me for this picture. I couldn't find a good picture of Mr. Farrow, but that is like, I don't know, 15 years ago when Mr. where we were both social studies teachers, and we got Mitch Daniels to come speak to the class. Again, they'll probably kill me for that picture, but it's a good picture nonetheless. Mr. Rivero has been a teacher in our government department for 25 years. Every year he has his students average at least 1,000 community service hours to give back to the community in a variety of different aspects. Whether it's the Humane Society, church community services, you name it. Our students have combed this community for the past 25 years and given of themselves, almost every senior. So we're looking at 25,000 hours that we have given back to the Concord community. And what better way to teach civics, what better way to teach the role of American government than to get our kids out and volunteer. Athletes in action, for lack of a better term. Just quickly, these were just a few examples, and there's a variety of different athletes and sports programs that are doing great things. But here's just a couple examples. This fall we had basketball team at Read, Write, Move, giving back to our young people, our varsity boys team where they are working with the Southside kids as well. Concord football does a variety of different things. They've worked in a variety of different entities. Since post-COVID, not as many opportunities to take big teams like that, but they've done a lot of different opportunities as well. One thing that we try to instill in our student athletes is this idea of service. You've been given an awful lot, and you are leaders of the school, and with, as Peter Parker's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility. My own comic book days. So we expect a lot from our student athletes. We've talked about this at length, but just throwing this in there because this is another one that's great. Our building trade students, you can see that the house is coming along. Thank you guys for that board approval earlier this year. That house is continuing to progress. Framed up, this was just this past week. So it's framed up, roof is up. They are chugging along, and we continue to build our partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Just got some communication from them today. They would like to do a district-wide build. So, but again, this idea that we're giving back to our fellow man. Potter's Marathon, this really needs no introduction. 24th year, a marathon of throwing pots, as Mr. Beaver would say, and also a variety of different fundraisers. We are the largest donator for any high school in the state of Indiana to give to Riley's Children's Hospital. We are approaching $500,000 in collective earnings over that 24 years. Again, a great opportunity for service. Trunk or treat. This was an awesome thing that we did this past fall, where we, for lack of a better term, did a trunk or treat. It rained crazy that night, and a lot of you guys helped out in that particular event. So we moved it inside. We are rough estimating around 1,000 patrons. And I'm lowballing that number, folks. I would fair to say that there was around 1,500. Try to be modest here. But it was a great way to give back to our community. A lot of our different sports organizations, a lot of our clubs, our school board, you can see them in the bottom corner, gave back, and it was a great opportunity to do something fun and something positive for our young people. Food drive each year. We haven't launched our food drive. That will launch here in a couple weeks, but that is one of the things that we do each and every year for church community services. Last year, again, we do this in March, so it's a couple weeks away. We raised almost $1,700 and collected almost 7,000 pounds of food. So that will be coming up. We're excited about doing that once again, and we look to break those records as well. With Key Club, National Honor Society, Student Council, some of the representatives I have here, Student Council totaled 1,600 hours in the first semester of community service. Juniors and senior NHS members have accrued a total of 1,700 hours of service throughout their membership period so far. So again, a variety of different ways that we are giving back. Adopt a family each Christmas. We adopt several families to provide basically a Christmas to a needy family. That's something that we do with these organizations as well. And I want to finish with this one because you want to talk about giving back to the community and being a real superhero. I mentioned Spider-Man. Mr. Golden is the real thing, folks. Marlon, you got nothing on Mr. Golden. But Mr. Golden, if you don't know, earlier this fall was driving down the street on his way home from rehearsal and saw a house on fire. He proceeded to stop the car, call 911, and proceeded to fight the fire himself until the fire department got there. He was banging on the door, nobody could hear it. It just so happened that the two elderly people inside were hearing impaired and didn't even realize that somebody was banging on the door and that their house was on fire. They actually came out after the fire had been put out by the fire department, and they were kind of like packing up. And this married couple comes out and says, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize my house was on fire." So if it's not for our very own Mr. Golden, I would hate to see what would have happened, right? So again, an awesome example of how we can give back to our community, and we go above and beyond. So at this point, I'm going to let some of my wonderful students kind of talk about some of their experiences and some of the things that they've learned, some of the things that they're doing. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jacob Camp. I'm a junior at the high school, and I have the privilege of serving as the recognition committee chair in the student council. So what the recognition committee does is we give back to our community within the school, because as Dr. Molnar said, our school is indeed a community itself. So what we like to do is at least once a month, we get little gifts for all of the teachers just to say, hey, thanks, you're amazing. All that you do for all of our students is amazing. We love that. We also like to recognize groups within our school and within our school district. So that could be music teachers, athletic directors, custodial staff, bus drivers, all these very important groups that contribute to our school and our school district, and we like to recognize them within our school.
Good evening to you all. I'm Arlo Ortega, and I'm the Student Council Sophomore Class Secretary, and I am happy to be speaking about how we give back to the community. Here at Concord, besides from giving back to the community in our school, we also like to give back to the community outside our school. Student Council and Key Club have had many events that revolve around giving back to the community outside our school, and two examples that I was involved in were Feed the Children and Salvation Army. Students give back to the community by volunteering their time and effort in raising money or preparing boxes of food to those in need. For Salvation Army, Key Club rang bells to collect money, and eventually that money would go towards providing food for the hungry, relief for disaster victims, assistance for the disabled, and clothing/shelter to the homeless. For Feed the Children, both Key Club and Student Council did it and prepared boxes of food or supplies, and then they would go to the ones in need. Doing activities like this and many more are important, and giving back to the community is important because all it really does is connect and familiarize ourselves with our people and people in the community. And I'm so excited to give back more to the community as time goes on.
I'm Matthew Dobbs, student body president. One thing that we did this year that was new, we're always looking for new ways to make things interesting at the high school and outside in our communities. And one way that we bridged the gap between the communities that Jacob and Arlo talked about was hosting our trunk retreat, as Dr. Molnar mentioned, which I think the testament to that success was that we had, like Dr. Molnar said, over 1,000 people come. We had various groups from our school and district involved. We love having the school board involved, of course. And we ran out of candy that night. So I think that just speaks to the success of that event, where we really bridged the gap between our school and local communities. And that's what we really try and do each and every day. This month is January is School Board Appreciation Month, and so Jacob, as a part of recognition committee, is going to be going around with some treats for our school board. Again, we just like to say thank you so much to all that you do, because you provide the basis for all of the great things that we do at our schools and within our community. So thank you for all of it.
Sorry, folks, open up to questions, anything that you'd like to add?
Thank you for this. I love hearing all the good work that you guys are doing. The trunk or treat was amazing. So looking forward to that being an every year thing. We did have to steal candy from these guys over here. You're completely underprepared. But it was fabulous. So thank you for that idea and hosting that. Thank you for our beautiful treats.
I will have to say that Matthew, he's really underselling it. He did the lion's share of planning, him and his phone, but it was really Matthew's brainchild, and he really put that plan into fruition. So kudos to this young man. He's pretty amazing what he does, for sure.
So
We loved it.
So he has an idea and he presents to you and you.
Yeah, it's very fun how we do kind of the idea process. So these folks, it really starts with Matthew. Will put a calendar event on my calendar, and they will pitch an idea. And sometimes I say you got to go back to the drawing board. And sometimes it's real. I can definitely say it's always well thought out. But being 18 years old and not understanding that sometimes there's a bigger picture, but it's really fun to do some of that brainstorming with folks like this. It's really one of the highlights of my job, and they are really amazing. But I love doing the pitches and listening to Matthew try to sell. Anything else?
I know there's been a lot of talk about the trunk or treat, but I think the one thing that I just still to this day impresses me, we had spent, I don't know, months planning this thing, and then one night, oops, it's raining, and somehow, within how many ever hours that you had, you managed to take the whole thing, put it inside a school building that was never designed for that kind of thing, and just basically act as though this was the original plan from the very beginning. That's which one is the engineer?
That's what we call our rain plan. We
That's
were
what
checking the
you're-
forecast all week, and the
That's-
rain plan kept getting better and better as the week went on.
Like, yeah, and you don't undersell. I mean, yeah, that was impressive. That was very impressive. My kids liked it too.
Great. Thank you very much for everything you guys do.
Appreciate you.
I don't even have to tell them they can leave if they want. You can stay. That brings us to hearing of visitors. Do we have any yellow cards? Okay, that brings us to consent agenda, which this evening contains minutes from 1/9/23, accounts payable claims, payroll claims distribution summary report, human resource report, conference requests, conflict of interest and disclosures.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mrs. Towner. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that brings us to item 4.1, which is Concord Student Achievement Report. Mr. Buston.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and take the podium here. So, there are handouts for everybody in the audience too, if you did not get one. I'm going to be referring to, this document here that says Indiana graduates prepared to succeed, indicators and methods of calculation. So if you don't have one, Mr. Myers can make sure that we get one, as I go through this, so. So, the release of the state's data dashboard essentially is coming at a good time for us in terms of our strategic planning. We want to set a baseline for where we're at, and what's really important to us as we implement our strategic plan is ensuring that we're looking at data along the way. We don't want to get to the end of the year and look at student achievement data and say, boy, we really missed the mark this year. And so what you'll see tonight is our results in reflection of the state's GPS dashboard. But from that will also come a public-facing dashboard just for Concord here soon that will have much more data even than that. I think transparency is important for that, and it's important to keep us on track with what we're going to do. So just so folks in the audience can see this, maybe I need to share my screen first. ATV1, right, Tyler? So if you go to the Department of Education's website, this isn't, doesn't like pop right in your face, like, oh, here's the state's dashboard. But if you just type in Indiana Department of Education, you see I searched it a few times, GPS dashboard, it'll take you to the website. When you click on that, it takes you to basically an overview, and what is happening at the state level is prior to now, there's been an A through F accountability system that established letter grades for schools that the state abandoned, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and has not been using that. And so this is meant to replace that. Mr. Yoder and I were told in the legislative session with some legislators recently that is happening. We'll see, but I think that's up for consideration in this legislative session. So if you click here, it'll say click here to view the dashboard. And from there, it'll give you an overview of basically of what this is. I'm going to go ahead and jump in for time's sake, but I would recommend, I think it's a good way to see what's the priority for the Indiana Department of Education. What are they measuring? But especially, I think their priorities come through pretty well. Let's get over here. And so the first thing you'll see are some headline indicators that the state has established. This is the entire state data here that you're looking at. And then below that, you'll see more specific indicators. If you want to know about a specific school or district, you just go to the search, and then if you type in Concord, you can see that our schools pop up. And I'll be talking about things from the district level here tonight. So at the top are the things that are headline indicators for the Department of Ed. I'm going to dig a little deeper into those things here in a second. What they're measuring with their green, yellow, and orange here is growth. Growth is important for us. We want to make sure that our kids are growing faster than they're expected to. Because a core piece of our strategic plan is that we have high expectations, that we meet every student with high expectations. So growth is important. But we also think proficiency is important as well, in getting all of our students to those points. But I will go ahead and dig in here just a bit on the indicators that exist. First one is student attendance, and what they're looking at here is the percentage of pre-K through 12th graders with at least a 94% attendance rate. So the number of kids or percentage of your students who come to school very frequently, okay? You can see here, we're the blue, the state is the black, okay? Kind of flattened out in 21 and improved just a little bit. That's why you'll see up here that little box being green, but we're not where we want to be, okay? And so state average is still going down. We went up a little bit, but we expect to exceed the state average with that. Down below student attendance, you can see a couple indicators that aren't ready yet. One thing the state is going to start measuring is, are your kindergartners ready for kindergarten? When you think about that, you think, well, what impact do we have on that? Not a lot right now. There's no funding really for schools for preschool directly, but we know that we need to be working with preschool partners to help make sure that our kids come to kindergarten ready to learn. And the state hasn't told us how they're going to measure that yet, but they will be measuring that here soon. Pre-K through grade 2 literacy, and it says that that is coming soon. We already have leading indicators of that we put in place just, I think, last year. We monitor our kids' reading ability using DIBELS at the K through 2 level, and that happens regularly and ongoing, especially for our students that are struggling. We're continually measuring and making sure that we're making proper growth with pre-K through grade 2. We hope that the state will use something like DIBELS because we're happy with it. We've been using it for a year. We'll see what measurement they come out with. On third grade literacy, in all these areas, I would say that and we talked about this earlier, but when we're looking at this, I want to make sure we all remember that this data represents individual students, right? And so for us, we're going to always strive for 100%. 99% means that somebody's being left out. But it is nice for us to see these trends to know on whether or not we're making a difference. Okay. So here on iRead, you can see at the district level, again, we are green up here, stage green, and we're making some traction, but not nearly enough. You're going to find when I talk next a little bit about our strategies and strategic planning that we're focusing on the essentials, and reading is the most important thing we do. Then if you click here, the state has determined that 6th grade math is essentially a gateway to future success in math. And so the state wants to know, how are your 6th graders doing, and are they ready for algebra sort of things, okay? So we know that math across the board is important, and that will be in our leading indicators, but we also know that 6th grade is really important too. So we saw growth there, but we're not nearly where we want to be. You can see the state average is 34%. As a state, we're behind in math, and we're making efforts to improve that. One of our strategies here in the near future will be updating our math resources. So we've not adopted a math curriculum in this district 7 years. And so that's a priority for us here at the beginning of our strategic plan.
Mr. Hudson, sorry to interrupt. So you're saying growth, is that from beginning of school year 2021 to end of?
So they're looking at the percentage of students that are meeting their growth targets. Okay, so they're not looking at, as a district, they're looking at individual students and the percentage of individual students that are meeting their growth targets.
Got it. Thank you.
So, there's upward movement, but again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It needs to get a lot better. 21st Century Scholars Enrollment. This is one that's probably going to take care of itself. There's actually legislation here that we think is going to auto-enroll all of our students who are eligible for the 21st Century Scholarship, and so that may come out of this. We'll see if that happens or not. Currently, they go through an application process, and our counselors try to work with parents to get as many kids signed up as possible. But to many at the state level, every student who qualifies is eligible, so why not just auto-enroll those students? So, advanced coursework prior to 9th grade. This is a big priority for us. I think we're going to see huge jumps in this for next year. As we know, the high school schedule is changing next year, ensuring that we give our kids some flexibility in their high school schedule. We're offering next year more classes at the junior high school for our kids to get some advanced coursework prior to 9th grade. And so we grew a little bit. You'll see it's green. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but I think we'll see significant improvement in that here in the near future. Graduation pathways is, if you read the indicator here, it's the percentage of grade 12 students who complete their graduation requirements, okay? And so we're the blue, we're a little bit above the state average here, and we separated ourselves a little bit from the state, just a little bit, but again, we're doing important work in this area. Dr. Molnar and Lisa are focusing on that in this upcoming strategic plan. So you'll see that's red, because you see that went down a little bit from 2020. College and career credentials. This one's interesting. This is a new one that they decided to measure. The state average is 5%. And so we're at 6% on this. It's the percentage of 12th grade students who have earned high quality college and career credentials. And so that's going to be not just taking a dual credit class, but getting to the associate's degree or getting to some technical certification. And so I know, again, Denise is leading our efforts. We're involved in a consortium with that to improve that, and we're doing good work there. So you can see, as a district, we've seen pretty significant growth in that area. But again, those are low numbers we're talking about, so I think you'll see that grow. This is the first year So we did some baseline setting around SAT with our juniors. So that you won't see a green, you won't see a red here on that because this is the baseline that's being established with SAT. Our strategic plan, again, has a major focus in English language arts and in math, but especially English language arts at our high school. And we think that will show some dividends. College and career coursework. This is the percentage of our kids who complete advanced coursework. So that's taking an AP class, taking a dual credit class. So this is more representative of maybe not getting the associate's degree, but taking those classes. And you can see we've made significant growth in that area over the last couple of years as well. FAFSA completion. This is what percentage of our students are completing the FAFSA form. That's been identified as a key component in getting kids to college, getting them an associate's degree, is completing that FAFSA. And so state average is 54%. With our demographics, and we have a lot of students from poverty, this is a real goal because a lot of times that paperwork piece of filling out the FAFSA, getting the financial aid, that's a barrier for kids to move ahead to the next level. So that'll be a focus for our counseling department moving ahead. And then this is the percentage of students who earn a core 40 or higher. The state average is 90.1%. We're exactly at the state average. But this is just 2021, so it's not looking at last year's graduates, it's looking at two classes of graduates back. And so we're confident that that number will go up with last year's group. And then they look at a lot of other indicators, employment and enrollment. Percentage of high school graduates employed and enrolled within Indiana for 1 year. And if you look at the document here, this will tell you where they're pulling that data from, because some of this you look at and you think, well, man, how are they keeping track of that? And so this will explain where that data comes from. Does a good job with that. And then sustained employment are those students who are high school graduates employed in the workforce within the state during the wage criteria year who meet a certain set of criteria. So they kind of fall off if they move out of state for you. And then the median income per capita, Elkhart's doing pretty well. You can see our high school graduates are on average earning more than the state. And then here they get into iLearn performance. Again, we're green on these areas, but again, we're not where we want to be. So we're growing. Our kids are growing faster than is expected, but not fast enough for us. And so you can see our iLearn growth in math as a district. This was during COVID. We took a big jump up last year. Expect to make another big one this year. iLearn growth in ELA. We did make a jump, but again, not as much as we would like. So those are both growth. So that these are the percentage of our students who are growing at the rate that they're expected compared to the state. And then this is our proficiency. You can see here we grew in all of these areas last year, but again, we're below the state average and we're better than that. And then iLearn proficiency in ELA as well. You can see basically where we were, and so it's just right in the state a little bit. So, I've walked through each indicator. You can get on that. You can search by school. You can run some comparisons with other places. As we meet with legislators, we're encouraging them to vote. This is a good system. It's an ongoing dashboard that's transparent, that will be updated as new data becomes available. They will update this. And so it's not a thing where it's just like once a year, I'm going to stand up here and talk about this. As they update these things, we'll continue to talk about this. And it's much more beneficial to growth and getting better than a letter grade system. So, any questions? I would love some.
I don't know if I have any questions. It's just I appreciate also how it's laid out. It's much it's easier for us to understand and monitor. You know, we've known things haven't been exactly where we wanted them to be, and this is even easier for us to keep checking in on it. So I don't know that I have any questions. I'm curious to see what the state will do with it, so I don't know that you can answer that.
Sure.
But I'm thankful for our lens to keep an eye on it and not wonder where it's at.
I'd encourage you too, if you have any wonderings, this explore button with everything will take you to some more detail as well.
Can you walk slowly and speak slowly to me, that slide right there? I see 50%, but that's not number of kids that are in school is 50%.
Right, that's so 50%, 50.8% of our students are at school 94% of the time.
Got it. Makes sense.
It used to be just a flat percentage, so they would take all of your students, they'd look at all of your attendance, and they'd give you a number. But that doesn't really tell the whole story, right? We know that kids need to be there regularly to do well, and so we more want to know what percentage of our kids are here a lot versus taking an average of some kids who maybe, for whatever reason, missed a ton of days, and averaging that with somebody who's missed 5 days. That doesn't give us a good number. So this gives us a better idea of whether kids are in school or not.
And generically, the career pathways, that number seemed a little light, but the state was light. Is that?
The graduation pathways
Yeah.
completion? Yeah. I mean, we're at 87%. We want to be higher than that. But it does seem light. Yeah. Now, are you referring to the one that was 6% and 5%?
Either.
Yeah, college and career credentials. Yeah.
Because it's more new. Like we haven't had, 8 years of it. We've only had a handful.
Yeah. So I can't speak for Denise, but I'm sure she would say we have a ton of kids on track now is the word, but that's, I wouldn't call this a leading indicator. I would call it a lagging, right? So do we have kids on track to get that associate's degree or to get that credential? Yes. But that's 3-4 years worth of work for the students to get there. So I think it's new. So. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you. You might as well stay up there.
Yeah.
4.2 strategic planning report.
Yep. So, I'm gonna go ahead and make this a little bigger. So, the more that I can stand up here and talk about our strategic plan and then review our 90-day plans with the board, I think that's a level of accountability, not only for me and my team, but for all of us, and making sure that the things we're saying we're doing are the things that we're doing. And so I'm here tonight just to share our priorities for the first 90 days of our strategic plan. And then, just a reminder, our measure of success is our portrait of a graduate that you see up here. Literacy is at the heart of that, and that's the most important thing we do. And then making sure that our kids are mastering the content is second. I want to emphasize again that this strategic plan is not just full of distractions. I call it today I called it, I think, the lunchbox plan once. Like we're coming to work, blue collar mentality, rolling our sleeves up and focusing on the essentials to make sure that we're doing the best things for our kids. And that starts with literacy and academic mastery. The things that the values that are driving this plan that come from our board, I think come from our leadership team as well, is that it's important for us to meet all of our students with high expectations. Our kids can achieve oftentimes a lot more than people expect out of them. And it's our job to make sure, regardless of what teacher they have, regardless of what school they're in, that we're meeting them with high expectations. So that's a value that drives our plan. The other value that drives our plan is that it's people, not programs. There are a lot of successful schools, a lot of successful programs, and programs are important. But if you put a bad person running a good program, you have a bad program. If you have good people running good programs, you have great programs. I think our band program, I think our swimming program, I think our successful programs at Concord are examples of great people running those programs. So we have a focus on growing our people, building off what Dr. Molnar said earlier, hiring the best people. We're proud that we're able to offer a competitive salary for our folks, but then making sure that we're growing our people because the skill of our teachers is how we're going to move the needle. And then the last value that drove us is student belonging. We know that students don't have a strong sense of belonging, strong relationships with the adults in our schools, that's going to get in the way of learning. And so that's a focus for us as well. But the work, just a reminder, we have our pillars, academic, student engagement, academic success, student well-being, making sure that we have a thriving staff, and building connections with our community. Our 90-day plan here, our focus that you see over the next 90 days is first and foremost is literacy, ensuring our students read at high levels. We're exploring the Department of Ed and literacy cadre and hiring literacy coaches to support our elementary teachers who are teaching our students how to read. We know, I think it's about 90% first graders who are not reading at grade level by the end of first grade are going to find it really hard to get to grade level the rest of the time. And so K2 is going to be a huge focus for us over the next 90 days and continuing after that. We're meeting a lot with our staff. So we're implementing a new reading system at our elementary schools right now. And Mr. Myers has done a great job of making sure that we're meeting with them regularly, keep them on track, make sure we're supporting the teachers in the implementation of that new curriculum. And so that's a big focus for us this first 90 days. And then continuing to make sure we train our teachers. CKLA is our reading curriculum in grades K through 6. And then we are looking at adopting common math resource. We're going to start at the secondary and get all those folks on the same page with something, and then we'll move to the elementary after that. And then we're really focusing on what we're putting in front of our kids over the next 90 days. And are we putting things in front of our kids that are at grade level, that's challenging, again, meeting all of them with high expectations. Within the student well-being pillar, you're going to see us looking at ways to kind of set a baseline to understand where our kids' sense of well-being is. And so probably will be some sort of survey that Lisa and her team are looking at and how we can do that, and then collect feedback from our kids on how our kids are doing. So you'll see that over the next 90 days. Over the next 90 days, you're going to see our police force conducting safety audits, checking to make sure that doors are locked, checking to make sure the safety protocols are in place, conducting drills. We do that ongoing, but we're going to have a special emphasis on that over the next 90 days. And then we're going to conduct an audit of our existing bullying prevention training. Dr. Kendall has set up a committee with parents, staff, counselors, and we're looking at our current bullying prevention training to see if that's what's going to help us move forward or not. We've conducted an audit of student services with the goal of having more face-to-face time with our counselors, between our counselors and our students. So that's happening right now, and then we're exploring some grant funding opportunities. Under thriving staff, you'll see that we're looking at our teacher evaluation rubric. We think that aligning our strategic goals, aligning things that we're doing with our teacher evaluation rubric. We don't want to have an evaluation rubric full of things that aren't important to us. And so we want to make sure that that's aligned. Continuing, Mr. Boyers is doing a great job. I attended the meeting last week, but we're regularly supporting our new teachers. Our mentorship program with our teachers, they're all connected, they're meeting regularly, and then we're actually bringing all of them together on a regular basis as a district. And it's fun to hear the support that our new teachers are providing to one another. We're looking to aggressively promote our job openings. We're in an extremely competitive environment right now for teachers, and especially for high quality teachers coming out. The profession, I told the Rotary Club in Elkhart today that just, that I think all of us, the more we can respect and celebrate the profession, hopefully the more kids will start to go into that profession So that's difficult, but Mr. Boyer's gonna get out, we're gonna get out in front. We have an early retirement notification incentive that ends on February 1st. We're gonna look at that, decide what openings we're gonna fill next year, and then we're gonna go out and get college graduates, is our hope over the next 90 days. So, and hopefully they're out there and Mr. Boyer can convince them to come to County Board. And then Mr. Boyer's, his committee's working on basically dividing our website up between prospective employees, current employees, to make sure things are clear for folks, and then establishing a wellness committee that's going to do some wellness activities. Sounds like we'll be walking a lot more. Community building, that is our last pillar. That group right now, or over the next 90 days, is going to be exploring two-way communication platforms. We've heard from the parents and the people on that platform or on that committee, hey, we push information out really well. Let's create kind of some consistent systems for that two-way communication. We have a large Spanish-speaking population, and engaging our community, that's key. And so we've been working on recruiting and hiring a bilingual receptionist to kind of be the front lines for us. And it's been difficult. There's not a lot out there, but we hope over the 90 days, next 90 days, we can find one and get them oriented. And then this committee has an idea of creating a program called Advocates for Concord Education, where we would bring community leaders together and basically run them through a series of courses to get people familiar with the school. And that group would actually then be doing some service within the schools and finding ways to actually help our students while they're also learning more about our schools. And so that should be kicking off in the next 90 days. And then we're relaunching the Concord Connection community newsletter. So not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on Twitter, and so Julie's been working on something that should hit people's mailbox before too long. So that's the next 90 days. I'll be back every 90 days. Any questions?
Curious about the survey for our students.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remind me what grade level that survey is going to?
We haven't picked that.
Okay.
We don't even know what survey for sure we're going to use. Panorama has a good one that we've used, but you don't get the Panorama surveys back for like a month, sometimes the results. So we're actually working with Dr. Kendall on what survey, and that will kind of determine that. But we would like to find ways. There might not be a survey, and it might just be observations, but somehow getting a good feel for how all of our students go, even in first and second grade. Is there a strong sense of belonging in that classroom? We can look at bullying referrals, would be another piece for that, but we haven't picked a survey yet.
Okay. Because that was my follow-up question, and parents helping the younger, I wasn't sure how that all looked. So
we can report on that when we pick something. Okay.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 5.1, some purchases of some devices, Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
A long presentation back and forth.
I apologize, I had it.
Camera
There you are.
All right, good evening. Thank you for letting me come again in front of you as I did 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I came and I let you know that throughout the fall, we put together a committee of teachers and district leaders from across the district, grade levels, buildings, to look at what our next student device would be. The recommendation was put forth to switch to iPads. So tonight, I'd like to ask for your approval to purchase the iPads. I'm going to walk you through how this is going to work, because we're going to do it kind of in 3 different pieces, if you will. 2 of them will happen as a purchase. So what I'd like to do is, if you approve tonight, purchase the teacher devices immediately, so we can get them in their hands before no later than the March 22nd e-learning notice. We can get training started right away. We would use some ESSER funds for those. The second part would come from a purchase for student devices, We were fortunate enough to apply for and receive money from the ECF, the Emergency Connectivity Fund, which is a grant put out by the federal government during COVID. And so we were awarded about $752,000, which will help offset the costs of about 1,880 of our student devices. So those two would be using ECF funds and ESSER funds to purchase them. The remainder, which would be about 4,000 plus devices, along with our professional development and our support services, we would look to lease. That we would enter that lease April of 2023, make 4 separate payments. The April's following that through 4 years. You can see up there what the 4 payments would be. We would use ESSER funds and district funds to cover the rest of that. The benefits of moving with a lease on this are 2 main ones. First, with the professional development that we're going to purchase, we're going to have about 45 days that comes with that. If we lease that, we can spread those 45 days over the 4 years. So we have continual support for our teachers throughout the whole lifespan of these iPads. If we were to purchase them and not lease, we have to use those 45 days in the first year. So that's a nice benefit that we can spread that out and continue to support year after year instead of just cram it all into 1 year and be done. The other part is if we lease and spread out the payments, if more grant opportunities were to come available throughout those years, we could use those to offset. The ECF is coming to an end. This is the 3rd and final round for that. As far as we know, there hasn't been put out anything for a 4th round, but if something were to take its place or they were to extend it, we would go after some money like that to be able to cover 1 or both of those payments moving forward. Any questions? So it's like a timeline, like I said, we would order teacher ones immediately. That would include our teacher devices and the Apple TVs, which are the little black boxes that we use to allow us to connect. Teachers would get those devices by the March e-learning day to get started right away with kind of learning those, kind of playing with them. Over spring break, we would install the Apple TVs so that teachers want to start the second half of the year playing with it. Of course, they wouldn't have to. We won't change anything else in their room. We would just be adding it. So if they're like, yep, I don't want to touch this until after the end of the year, that's totally fine. But for those that want to get a jump start, they can. We'll order in April for the student ones because we'll have about 5,000-ish devices to have to get ready with the technology department working starting as soon as they walk through the door to be able to put them in hands mid-August. So that's what we would order in April because it's going to take some time.
Motion to approve as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mrs. Davis. Any comments or questions for Mr. Stevens?
I assume there's inventory at Apple, but when you order, it's not going to back order.
Yep, I'm told that it'll take between 2 and 3 weeks to get here, which is we've kind of backwards planned that. If you approve tonight, I'm ordering tomorrow teacher devices. They should be here first couple weeks of February. It's about 350 of them. We'll have those ready for then. And then as long as we order by April, we'll have them in plenty enough time to work through the summer to get them. So,
And then the TV, longer battery life, and they're not tethered. They can move and the teacher can move.
Yep. The Apple TV, like I said, is just a little black box that'll connect to that. The device then will connect wirelessly to that, and the battery life would be a lot longer there. The idea with the Apple TV too, again, would be untethering the teacher from the front of the room and having the capability for the students to put their screen up there, which when we did our surveys with both students and teachers, that was a big ask. They want to be able to show student devices on the big screen. So I'll take care of it.
A little bit on the lease. The lease is 0%. So it's actually just the same amount of money we would spend if we purchased. We went back and forth on a purchase versus a lease, but we have enough money in our federal stimulus funds, the ESSER money, to pay the first 2 years of that lease, and then by leasing them, that gives us the opportunity to take advantage of future grant money. Where if you just spend the money now, you wouldn't be able to go back and capture that future grant money. So.
Do you anticipate, maybe I did, forgive me if you've already gone over this in the past, do you anticipate any major additional costs as far as making sure the infrastructure is able to, obviously, anytime you bring in a new technology, you got infrastructure, do you anticipate any major costs, either one-time costs or just long-term costs that you can see with getting the infrastructure?
No, we're in a good place with that because we've had the Chromebooks on the internet and on the connection for the past 5 years now. We feel pretty good about that. And we've got iPads in K1 areas, so we know what it kind of feels like to have those on there. So it'll really be swapping. Like we won't have double the amount, right? We just
just for a portion of time, a teacher can have both devices.
Yep.
And-
Yep.
And turn it in.
Over the summer, we'll work on how we're gonna collect student devices, and then we'll, of course, we will work with a company to buy back, to get some of those funds back. We'll get a ton for each combo, but everyone adds up. We'll get some.
Any other comments or questions?
So you're actually taking two actions. Your first action will be to purchase, and then the second action will be to release.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And 5.2 is then the action filed for a motion for 5.2.
Motion to approve is
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Towner, a second by Mrs. Davis. Any comments or questions about the lease board? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Stevens. That brings us to 5.3, an MOU. Mrs. Takara.
Well, after all my esteemed colleagues have been up here, sharing wonderful things, my time will probably be much more succinct. But just as Mr. Funston shared, how we're pushing our students to go for our credentials, continuing to work on dual credits that we are, as you know, part of our UCAN, the Urban College Acceleration Network, where that has been a grant that has been administered by CEL at the University of Indy. And so I finally received an MOU from them after a number of months that we have been involved with them, and I'm bringing that to you and asking you to consider that for approval. That MOU outlines just the relationship of how we share our progress monitoring data as well as our reimbursement of funds. Any questions?
Motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mr. Malooly. Any comments or questions for Mrs. Tahara? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to 5.1, or 5.4, sorry, another MOU with Beacon Health, Mr. Jacobiak.
I want to, this is an ad from the original. Beacon reached out and for our kids to get going, doing their work-based learning at Beacon, they've asked that we approve this MOU before our kids get started. So, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We recently received this. All the years we've been doing this, we haven't had to do this before. So I'm not sure what all the changes. I think it's just one of their new policies that they're implementing. But it's going to allow us to have our students continue with their internships that we use already at Elkhart General Hospital. And what we're hoping is that it's going to kind of expand to Beacon Health Systems, which is all of their satellite offices that they have around the area, which is a lot. And with all of our competition that we have with all the other schools and universities, everyone around seeking medical internship placements, even job shadowing experiences, which could be a day, it could be a semester. This is something they sent us that we just need to hopefully sign and approve. But I'm leaving that up to you guys. But it is something that we think will help us, and at least it's the first step, especially for the Beacon Health Systems part to get the ball rolling.
How many kids do we have?
Elkhart General this year, I believe we have 6, and we're hoping to get our foot in the door with one of their satellite offices this semester. That may take some time. This is the first step.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mrs. Towner. Any comments or questions for Mr. Jacobiak?
Does this open up the door to go to the Beacon Health Center and have, where's that? This medical?
We hope.
Okay.
Yeah, if we can kind of get them to the door, so to speak, and get our kids in there first.
Deciding I hope we get more students.
Right, exactly.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Jacob.
Thank you.
That brings us to 6.1, financial report. Mr. Evans.
This is great.
Okay, this is the final report for the 2022 calendar year. Financial summary report for December 31, 2022. I guess two things I'd like to say, again, keeping it short and succinct. As far as the cash balances, most of the cash balances are either at basically where they were a year ago or higher. And so I would say that I would feel comfortable with where we are with those cash balances at this point. Then looking at the appropriations and the percent unexpended, always important at the end of the year that we ended the year with some appropriations remaining. And so we feel comfortable with where those are. And so with that said, answer any questions.
One way you'll notice the cash balance growing in the education fund, that is we have taken advantage of the ESSER money and the federal stimulus dollars to build up intentionally that cash balance, as we'll have expenditures that have been being paid for, actually about 14 teachers right now being paid for out of that grant that will have to come back into the education fund. And so this is Mr. Evans and his team and some good pre-planning to make sure that our accounts are in good shape when that money comes out.
Looking for a motion?
Motion to approve as presented. Sorry. Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Downer, a second by Mrs. Davis. Any comments or questions for Mr. Evans?
You usually reference the food service, and that 2022 number is right where we want to be now based upon all the ins and outs and ups and downs that we've had during the COVID supply chain.
Yes, short answer is yes. There's been some good things that have happened that have helped us get to the point where we did have a cash balance. But we anticipate that there have been some things that have happened at the federal level that have helped us get to this point that we anticipated were going away. Reimbursement levels that we'll receive, of course, last year, all of the meals were free, and so we got reimbursed for all of those. That's gone away this year, even though the reimbursement from the federal government has remained pretty strong. We anticipate that will go away at the end of this school year. So there's several things that we're anticipating will kind of begin to eat into that cash balance.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Evans. That brings us item 6.2. Mr. Funston, consider board policies.
So again, a reminder for everybody that we use a service called Neola that recommends updates on policy as court cases set precedent, as new laws come into play, as new civil rights cases come into play. So what you have in front of you here would be the second reading. You presented the first reading of these at our last meeting. Would like to thank Mr. Boyer, Jennifer, Carla worked extremely hard with our Neola rep, making sure that we keep these things up to date. So didn't receive any questions in between first and second reading, so would ask for approval of these edits.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't make a motion to approve. Okay. Motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Davis, a second by Mrs. Towner. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good job, everybody. That brings us to 6.3. Mr. Phillips, we like to see you on these days.
This is good. So 2 weeks ago today, the students moved into a new building, so things are going really good. Tonight, we have for your approval a deduct change order for, I think this is the biggest one, $195,942.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Yoder, a second by Mr. Malooly. Any comments or questions for Mr. Phillips?
Jeff, can you just explain for the crowd what a deduct change order is?
So like we had built into the original contract, you have contingency money, things like that. The project works very well. We use hardly any contingency money, so that's some value engineering, things like that, so that's really good. But
This is money that comes back to
come back to us.
Just out of, and this is something that affects me. So this is, we're approving a motion to basically accept back money that we've saved. What if we don't approve it, what happens?
I think why can't per the contract with the construction manager, they would hold on to that. So we would rather have it. Nice Christmas.
This is, I just, Jeff kind of said this, we've had some projects that have been some projects, and this was not one of those projects. If there was an issue, it was taken care of, and this has been a beautiful project, and Jeff and his team and Wygant, everybody did a great job, and obviously brought us a lot of savings, and so I'm just thankful for everybody's work in this project, and I'm thankful that we can bring this back to everybody.
Simple to us, the architect designed it well, right? Because a lot of contingencies didn't come back because they left things out of the design. And so we're really happy with the architect.
Yes. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good, Wygant can't keep their money. Thank you, Mr. Phillips. That brings us to 6.4. You'd like to renewal some contracts, Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, I'd like to keep our internet on.
Well, I mean, yes, please.
We're getting all these new devices with my internet. So every 5 years, we have to put out to bid our internet and WAN contracts through the E-rate program. Remember, the E-rate program is federal money that public schools and libraries can apply for to offset the costs of those services. So we put it out to bid. We look for companies to respond. We're actually going to go ahead and stay with our current one, which is Surf Internet or MapleNet here in town. The cost will actually be lower on both of those for our internet and our WAN. Our WAN is our wide area network. So basically what happens is we pay for the internet to come in, just like it would come to our house. It comes into this building. And then from here, our wide area network sends it out to our 7 buildings plus our transportation building. So I'm just looking for approval to continue their service. And in fact, it will actually come down in price this time between 26 and 36%. So it's keeping it on and paying a little less.
Motion to approve is presented. A motion by Mrs. Towner, a second by Mrs. Davis. Any comments or questions for Mr. Stevens? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to 7.1, sharing from the board.
I guess I'll be a little belated on this. I was a little lost in my chair last meeting being my first, but I did want to just kind of introduce myself. Let everybody know I'm glad to be here. And it's not lost on me the gravity of the duty that's in the trust that they have placed on me. So my prayer is that I can have the wisdom and discernment to live up to those expectations. So yeah, my main focus is I want to build relationships with everybody, you know, I want to build relationships with everybody out here. And I want us to come together and be able to do the business of educating kids. So please come find me, get to know me. My name is Mike Bluey, unless I owe you money. That's
Thank you.
My sharing would be, getting to witness both perspectives of an athletic event. Our swimmers won with grace, just was real classy in their whole win. And our girls basketball team Saturday, handled themselves really, really well in a situation, so both programs doing a great job of showing Concord class. So kudos to our kids and coaching staffs and everybody that helps out here at those events.
Anything else, anybody? That brings us to our superintendent report.
Yeah, so exciting. Wednesday is a planned e-learning day. We'll make sure we send a reminder home as well to remind our parents of that. We're going to have a brief presentation in the BPAC at 11:15 on Wednesday. We're going to have our entire staff in the BPAC and be able to celebrate the launch of our strategic plan. And then we're going to celebrate with Bill's Barbecue after that in the high school cafeteria. So you're welcome to join us for that. And then that evening, everybody here is invited. Our entire community is invited. We're going to have another event that same evening, so Wednesday at 6 o'clock in the BPAC, where we'll be sharing key aspects of our strategic plan with our community. Should last approximately 30 minutes. I practiced today, got it down to about 20, I think 20, 25. So I promise it definitely won't be over 30. The last thing I want to share tonight is something we're proud of, and we received our final tax rates for 2023 recently, and we're extremely proud of where we are with that. We feel like we've been responsive to our community. Not only do we have the lowest tax rate here since anybody can remember, we actually also lowered our levy and the amount of revenue we're receiving. So when you would think with assessed value going up, a lot of districts would be keeping the same rate and receiving many more dollars. We're actually receiving fewer dollars next year. And so we feel like we've been responsive to our community with that. And I will show something here in a second. I would like to say that that's not been easy, but we think that being responsible and efficient while still doing everything we can for our students is our job. And so we've worked to establish strong financing with less revenue. Again, it's not been easy. It has impacted our students. Example of the high school schedule is one, but we've worked to really minimize that impact as much as we can so that we can lower taxes. So if you actually here, I'll just pull my screen up, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows this. And so as we have conversations, as people get their tax bills coming up in the spring, they understand what Concord is and where they have been. So just a quick, and I don't know if this will be really easy to see, but I'll zoom in for you. But in 2018, the overall tax rate in Concord was $1.80. Up here at the top, the levy, which is the revenue that the district actually receives, was a little over 20 million. Our tax rate then, $1.80, $1.78, $1.78, 2020, $1.70. With the loss of the referendum, that moved down to $1.56 last year. But we are really excited to be able to have a tax rate of $1.32 in 2023. And so we think that's a big deal. Again, we think we've been responsive. If you look at the total dollars compared to last year, our AV has gone up 12% in this community. So the potential for 12% new revenue was there, and we're actually receiving fewer dollars. And so I think we want to make sure as a board and as a leadership team that we're being transparent. We think informed with the public is important. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you tonight. So that's all I have.
That's a big thing. Thank you for sharing. Will you go over our upcoming board meeting schedule, please?
I sure will. We have, we'll be meeting February 6th for our next regular meeting here at the Education Center. We have a tour of the West Side scheduled for February 8th at 7:45 in the morning, so bright and early. We'll get there after the buses go, and then we're going to move over to East Side on February 8th right after that at 9:15. So 2 opportunities to see 2 of our schools, interact with our kids and our teachers, and so looking forward to that.
Very good. With that, I adjourn our meeting at 7:17. Thank you, everybody.